My son's got a Karcher WD 3.5p premium vacuum cleaner, and which has stopped working, so I dropped it off. In turn, then I thought I'd do first off do a check and just continuity test, and turn the plug on. There was nothing on the actual meter, so then set about pulling it apart. So the process was here to 6 screws, and in turn took the 6 screws out. This top portion comes off, and then just inside that is the actual motor, which will fall out. If you just touch it a little bit, or touch it lightly, or turn the head up, it'll just fall out. And then went the next step. Now, this is the fan motor that's inside the vacuum cleaner, and this top portion here, I just grabbed that gently, wiggled it, and that actually released upwards. So it's not glued on, it's just pressure fit. And then the next part was that when I noticed that there was some marks on these bits here, that's when I realised that its top was glued in on the actual 4 posts. So then I made a custom gear puller, I suppose you'd call it, which is just an old U-bolt, and in turn welded up the top portion and just welded some bits of metal on the side, drilled a hole in the bottom so it actually sat centre on the actual shaft in pulling it off, and a bit of inch steel I cut down in half and made some pulling portions. Now this is the setup with the homemade gear puller. Of course this is after I've actually put this thing back together, but that's the piece I took out, and of course you've got the shaft at the top. And then gently winding it down and then heating up. So I had a heat gun, an old Azito heat gun, works a treat, and in turn heated up the actual post areas. Continued that for a couple of minutes, doing those and keeping pressure on the actual gear puller, and then slowly started to release. Obviously the glue became soft, and then the whole thing lifted up and popped off. Too easy. So after progressing with the assumption that this was just held on by glue, which it was in the 4 points, and using the homemade gear puller, that's what I'll call it, took that portion off, and the investigation found that inside I'm doing a continuity testing between contactors that go to the back to the armature and the winding, that there was continuity there, but in turn that here it wasn't, and found a broken wire just down in here, which I'm just going to solder another piece to and hook it back into its little clip, and then put the clip back in, and then put it all back together. Okay, I've put a bit of a joiner on the end that was broken off, and a bit of a coated copper wire. Put it back into the plug, pressed it back down, and soldered up the joint. Now I'll put it back together and see how we go. Okay, after repairing the motor, rejoining a broken wire, then in turn came back, gave it a continuity test, and in turn pressed the start button, and there we go, continuity all the way through the motor. So should be a goer. Okay. Well, it's only rated at 1000 watts. Looks like it's pulling 1600 watts, so yeah, see how it goes.